It's 8:30. We call Sawyer County Finance Committee meeting to order. Ask the clerk to call a roll, please.
Ron Kinsley.
Here.
John Rickheimer.
Here.
Stacy Hessel. Here. Tom Duffy.
Here.
Dale Schweeder.
Let the record indicate we have a quorum. Please rise with pledge of allegiance. Aye.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Certification for compliance open meeting laws.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Meeting agenda is set. Number 6, public comment. Ms. Zomer.
Linda Zilber, 902 Holly Hill Lane, Birchwood, Wisconsin. First, what the comment has to do with a non-agenda item, but it's a request to put something on a future agenda item, is how will the county and maybe specifically the finance committee consider requests that were unbudgeted for 2023? 3 examples I'm thinking of are: 1, future requests for broadband, letters of support with a monetary contribution. Second of all, potential future housing development. And third, due to the storm, I know from attending a couple committee meetings that, recreational groups are looking for money and maybe, I think maybe looking to the county. So how will the county consider requests coming forward? Is there going to be a policy or a application process? And the second item I wanted to ask the committee to request that when you get future ambulance financial reports, that they include full year data. I understand that there's going to be a blip in that there was a gap in billing and the switchover from company to company, but that should be able to be explainable in trends. And it's always going to be inconsistent between the number of runs, when things are billed, and when things are going to be collected. It's just the nature of ambulance billing. And the good example, when you get to this month's exhibit, even comparing May and November, the number of runs versus the amount billed, which should be fairly consistent, aren't. So again, to get a better picture of ambulance, please get full year reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody online?
Nope, nobody online.
Number 7, approve the minutes of the previous meeting of December 8th. Motion by Mr. Duffy, second by Ms. Stacy Hessel to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion
Thanks.
carries. Thank you. Number 8, Jadine, Treasurer's Department report. She on virtual?
She is not available today. She did submit the sales tax receipts. I guess the summary there is that they did finish the year up from prior years.
No, we have all new people basically in the treasurer's office. Those things going there. You have any idea?
I think our new employee Tatiana is working out well. She's getting up to speed. Still, yeah, I think the newness still there's some
Things to
just
grow through.
growth and efficiency and better with the settlements and improving. I know they had to dig through a lot of old files. So Janine's been purging some things. Mike works a little bit closer with them, and Randy's been down there quite a bit, helping get some of those systems in place. So Mike, you want to how the treasurer's office?
Yeah, Randy's been helping. She's been getting the bank recs up to date and helping on some processes and streamlining and whenever they are, when she goes down and college, she'll do the deposits and stuff. It's really temporary because we shouldn't be doing that just for separation of duties, but to get us through this.
Sometimes we have to when they're everybody's learning. So,
Yep, exactly.
leave it at that. Anybody else have any questions for the information that was provided? If not, we'll on to number 9, Finance Department report. First item, letter A is budget update.
Yeah, so from last month to this month, we've ended the year, but that doesn't mean everything's done. There's a lot of closing yet to do and a lot of grant money still coming in, a lot of expenses still coming in. We're still posting a lot back to 2022, but we're in really good shape at this point still. If you want to go to the next slide, then I'll start taking you through some things. Again, I ran this last week, so not everything is in here. If you look at it, stumpage looks like they're not quite hitting the mark, but they have exceeded it. So once again, Greg came through, which I never doubted. And there's a miscellaneous revenue there that we've got to make an adjusting entry. That's something I quoted on. It's actually, that was our payment to Northwest Regional Planning, so we'll get that corrected and get that in the right place. Otherwise, revenues are in really good shape. Going department by department, most of them hit. You can see ambulances under, and we're going to talk a little bit more about ambulance later. But a lot of them actually exceeded revenues for the year. And then, I'll explain where we're really at when we get to those summary slides. On the expense side, we're in good shape. We're at 89% for the year. And the 89% is also including that transfer to special revenue fund, which I'm hoping we won't be doing all of that when we get everything closed. And that's the amount that will come out of fund balance. So then the next slide kind of shows a summary of where we're at. So the revenue side on the general fund, we're at 96%, the expense side, we're at 89%. So then if I do some adjusting, like if I, you can keep it up there. If I assume that we aren't going to have to do that drop from fund balance, our revenues are actually at 104% of budget. If I back out the LACTF funds, which is on the agenda a little bit later, then we're at 102% basically. So we've hit the revenue side. On the expense side, if I back out that transfer to the special funds, we'd be at 96.46, which would mean at this point, we're still under budget on expenses too. So really good shape. The next slide just shows a summary of HHS and highway, the two big funds. HHS is showing revenues at 87%, expenses at 84%. Again, if I back out that transfer this plan, we'd be at 101% of their other revenue, which is good news. On the expense side, I know that there's a little lag in billing from the outsourcing of placements. So we'll get that number as soon as we can. Right then, I'll plug that in as an estimate. I know that won't get settled probably in a couple of months yet.
That's common to do that though.
Correct, yeah. And then the highway department, we're really close to being on budget. 95% revenue, 96% expenses. We are showing a little net loss at this point, but I know there's some grant money coming in still that we just haven't received. So really no surprises at all on the budget. And this is my first budget closing. I don't know everything, but from what I can tell, we're in good shape. Any questions on the budget?
I do, John. Mike, do we have actually write a check to Winnebago or Mendota, or do they take it out of the money that's sent to us from the state? And you don't know that?
I don't know that actually. I think we get invoiced because they're behind invoicing us, aren't they, Andy?
Right.
Well, it's
So
3
I'm
months,
assuming it's a check.
3 months into it. Oh,
Good way to put it together. Thank you.
All right, and then moving on to the next one. So Randy actually put this together. I helped her out a little bit, but she did most of the legwork. So this shows where our money is at and how much there is in each account. And then at the very bottom, a couple of those restricted funds and what the balance is there. So just going through this, a year ago, we had money in 5 different cities in Chippewa Valley. They matured, I believe, the end of December of 21. At that time, those just went into friends and things. But now what we've been doing is investing a little to get a better return. So the last month and this month, you can see we've got about $10,000 in the local government investment pool, which right now is giving just over 4%. We've got some general fund monies in WISC, which is through PMA, and the bond proceeds were deposited all into WISC. And I just did a draw, not really a draw, a transfer from bond proceeds to general fund within WISC, just to catch up our expenses on the construction. So right now, from the original bond issue, we've got about 1.1 million remaining after paying all the vendors, which the vendors are really only the architect firm and Byron. So that's where we're at there. There's a little bit of debt service money in this, so all of those are earning pretty good interest. Then you go down to the checking accounts, and this is one thing we're going to be cleaning up with our, I think, RFP that the finance committee approved back in December. We're going to really just move towards Franson and simplify things, honor the RFP, which in the past have been RFPs and the money hasn't all gone there. I think we should honor what we said we would do, so we're going to try to move as much as we can. One we won't be able to move is Hometown Bank. That's where the light less money is deposited. And then they actually move that into another bank on our behalf. We won't even have access to that account. So that one's going to stay there. The rest we're really going to try to clean up and get it in Branson. Effective January 1st, again, this is December 31st of 22, our Branson account is going to be earning just under 3% with our new deal with them. So that's going up quite a bit for whatever we leave in there. Got the grand total of our accounts, receipts and disbursements for the month, and then the monthly interest earned. And you can see from a year ago, we were earning a lot more interest than we did. We were about $48,000, and it was just 13. Good improvement on interest.
Yeah, awesome.
A lot of it is economy.
I have a question.
Yep.
We're moving in the checking account, we're moving all the stuff we can to Franson Bank. Does it pay to keep some in these other local banks for good working relationship?
I'm assuming that's why they always have been that way. And if that's what the committee would like to do, we can do that. From a business standpoint, I would always want to honor who would put the best bid together.
I respect that. Yes,
Mike, when was our last RFP we did?
This,
Well, we did it this year. The one prior to that, I believe it was about 4 years ago, and it was a 3-year, and then it was extended a year ago.
And all these banks had a chance to submit a,
Correct.
and Branson was,
Branson came up with
Yeah.
Wells Fargo, I didn't consider that. That's, I wouldn't consider that one.
I'm okay with that. I think about that. That's all. I want to get all the money and interest we can also. So I don't know what the thoughts of the rest of the committee are.
I like honoring the RFP just because they do get I understand your relationship issue, but I think that honoring that and then having them come back in 3 or 4 years and try would be good.
I agree with that. Okay, go ahead, Mike. Thank you.
And then the final piece there, the ARPA money that's unspent is just under 2.2 million. We do have some commitments out of that though as well. Well, it's basically it's all committed at this point, but that's the amount that has not gone
An issue.
Yeah. And then we've been getting, I think we have 3 opioid disbursements that have come out of this. That's the amount in there. We really haven't discussed deeply what we have to do with that.
Mr. Shu.
and can you comment on that opioid money? Do you have any obligated and what is the committee think?
We've got none of the opioid money is obligated. what's in there so far is first payments from the Janssen settlement. And then there was some additional, like, there's 2 settlements already done, and we've got received money out of both of them. The one settlement they paid actually the first few years. None's obligated. At the CJCC is where the most conversation has happened, and public health has taken the lead on, I guess I would say, creating a framework for not just how we're gonna obligate the money, but just a plan for dealing with the opioid overdoses, everything from prevention to recovery. And they gave us kind of the framework at yesterday's meeting. And the next step is to assign, there's a nice layout. And then there it shows places that money could be obligated, and also just assigning those responsibilities to different entities within the community. So I think the next step actually is to create the work plan that would request budget funds to implement some of the work they've done. That being said, too, I'll just bring up that we also got noticed, you've probably seen this in the news a little bit, that there's been some additional settlements. We already knew about the Johnson & Johnson and the distributors. Now the retailers are settling. So there's been some vague news out there about CVS, Walgreens, Walmart. So we did receive formal notice yesterday that those agreements are in place for most of those. That's going to increase the amount of money we're going to get, but we don't know by how much exactly at this point. But just as a comparison, the distributor settlements were for $26 billion total, and the retailers is in the neighborhood of 20 billion. So we should be getting a similar amount of money as what there's, a lesser amount proportional.
Have we decided whether we're gonna take a lump sum or in payments over so many years?
Yeah, right at this point, we're getting the payments because the option to take the lump sum is still not been finalized through the county association. If there seems to be some slowdown in that discussion of taking lump sum payments. But we'd have to opt into it with however many other counties decide to opt in, and they're working with the bond council and the attorneys to put that together.
Then obviously, like, this money is invested, those earning interest.
And all these funds going to find something. Well, we'll talk about that coming up, how we're gonna invest, but any bank held funds will go to staff.
Move on, please.
It's next is the highway CIP. Just a brief summary of why we do what we do with the CIP. The CIP is capital improvement program, and Sawyer County began doing this a few years ago. The idea behind it is you take capital items, you issue that for them. The repayment of that debt can be outside the levy limit calculation, so it does free up a little bit of monies for other things to do with that. Keeps your budget not quite as tight, so that's why we do it. Our goal, Andy and I talk about this a lot, we want to get to where we are between the debt and being it within the same year to minimize interest costs, but still take advantage of the exemption. Right now, some of the issues have been up to 5 years, and we're down to about a 2-year repayment schedule, but we really want to get that all within the same year. It would also be easier for planning other debt issues, rises, or even budgeting to just have it done all within the year. The highway CIP from 2022 is not dissimilar from other ones at this point, where much of the stuff that's in there has not bid it, awarded the bids, but the equipment is not available yet. So there are 2 triaxle trucks that were bid that we won't get until 2023, and the same with a 1-ton dump truck. We were able to get a stacking conveyor that was purchased from the other, but the others, and the CIP money carries over. I believe there's even some 2021 that just hasn't been available yet. We're still I think most of that's taken care of. Now, a lot of the 22 any vehicle has really been put back months just because of supply issues.
It's even a little more, well, those, like tracks and trucks, it gets even a little more complicated. The lead time is long, but it's a two-step process too. You have to order and commit to the chassis. And then that might take 6 to 8 months for the chassis to show up, and then you gotta go get the box and the outfitting all done, and that might be another 6 to 8 months.
It's taking care of that now. I guess I'm wondering, Jay Sands always used to take care of order the chassis and the boxes. And he's retired out.
I can give you a name.
Yeah.
There's a process out at Highway where they take the bids, and I can't think of the person's name, gives a recommendation to Gary and they run it up to us and then we give them to go ahead and just move ahead with it. Even this year, there was between budget years, we have some things in the capital improvement plan for 23. But we did make some commitments in December because if you order by the end of the year, there's pricing increases, so we try to get underneath those.
Yes,
Chairman, does your committee Public Works discuss the CIP plan for highway?
we have not.
Probably good thing.
Yeah.
And do other departments, Mike, have a CIP plan?
Yep. IT has one.
Maintenance.
Zoning, maintenance, conservation, forestry. Ambulance. Ambulance is a little bit different. Anybody that buys equipment, basically, we try to.
Or like our sheriff's department or vehicle?
Have sheriff's department, all of the need ones.
Yeah, sheriff's department is,
Get out of under that levy limit, though, right?
It's about 1.3 million a year that leads out.
Smart.
Yeah, Tom like a nice job saying.
How does that work if you decide to buy some? I don't know if I can get the right wording. If you purchase some trucks, but you pay them off in the same year, is that capital improvement? And you keep it out of the regular levy limits? Poor choice of words on my part.
You mean if it actually can be purchased in the year of the CIP? Yes. Yeah. The debt issue is the vehicle that makes it outside the levy limit,
Okay,
not the date of the purchase.
okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Mike?
I'm just thinking, Mike, if we agree to pay it back in that same year that we borrowed money, how is that to the taxpayer? Is it more of a shock or more palatable to them versus stretching out over several years? I know you talk about saving interest and
The overall payment would be less because there'd be less interest. So what's happening now is we might issue 1.3 in debt. The first year we might pay 900,000. Next year we might pay 400,000. Well, then the next year we're issuing the debt again, and it might be the same structure where it'd be 900,000. So you have the 4 from the previous year, the 9 from this year, so it has to be 1.3. Anyhow, what we're dealing with right now, since it was stretched out over more years, our principal payments a little more because we're trying to constrict the future years. So we're payments are a little higher right now as we're getting ready to look at that.
as far as the sticker shock or affecting the tax, that's where we have that debt schedule. And that's where we have some have been 2 years, 3 years, some get blended into the longer term debt, so that our debt service, the portion of our levy attributable debt service stays pretty flat.
yeah, because we all want to get reelected again, so
Mhm.
we'll look at that.
Yeah, they probably don't go in and look at the levy and there's the debt service portion goes up and down, or the ambulance or the operational levy.
Online.
They look at the,
Hey,
Mhm.
and of course, we can control the levy rate, but different people will feel that differently depending on if their township is reassessed and if the equalized value shifts from this town to this town. And this town's gonna see more of a impact on their taxes than a different township.
If the mill rate went up 2%, it could vary from township. Some could go down 20%, some could go up 40%. All depends on reevaluation versus the other townships. that they've done.
So keep them building in your district.
Yeah, new construction.
Anything else with that, Mike?
No, that's all I did.
Number 10, investment review and update.
Well, I just showed you kind of where the money is. And what we're getting for rate of return. These two sheets I handed out to you. First, I'll go through the one with this. Explain the difference about the law. So the first, and then the second sheet kind of shows what the current rates are. The first one I've got on here is the 90-day treasury bill. And if you look at the returns, it's gonna look like the T-bill is always 80 more. But you have to remember, you issued on day one, that rate's the same all the way through day 90. So you can see, like if you have issued in September, the rate of return would have been 3.13. Well, in November, LGIP is getting 3.72. So while 3.13 looks less than 2.4 directly of issue, you really have to look at the 3 years, 3 months as a whole. And obviously, when you issue it, you know, the next 3 months are going to look like that's something to keep in mind. Most of these safe investments, which everything in front of you are safe investments, are somehow tied to the T-bill. They go up and down according to that. The next one on the list is the local government investment pool, and that's where we have the majority of our money right now. It is getting a very good return. That's a really, really safe one. It's specifically set up for Wisconsin governmental units and schools to use. It's all pulled together. It's not without risk, but it really, really minimizes risk. American Deposit Management Company, the one that I've worked with, is very, very similar to LGIP, only in a private investment group. Again, it's not without risk, but it's very minimal. Their return is really close to LGIP. If you look at the course of these 3 years, I've got some of you. Wisconsin Investment State Partnership, like one of the WISC is part of PMA, that's their investment structure. They kind of have 2 wings within that. Cash management series, which are very liquid, and investment series that might utilize CDs and things like that. Some of the ones you tie up a little bit, not that you can't drop, but there might be a penalty. So that's why that rate of return is generally a little bit higher. Granted, bank for just your local bank, you want to invest there, you also do CDs. We know, but for anybody else, we've got the CDs on there as well. And those are pretty strong returns. The one thing that surprised me for Branson is the 3-year, even the 2-year is higher than the 1 year. You're starting to see as you get out to 3 and 4 years, some of the CD rates are lower than the ones that mature over the seniors because of the uncertainty in the future. So those are strong returns too. One thing we need to discuss on the committee is what we would like for the investment strategy. There's one recommendation of the main office start is that we would have 2 million in grants and just for our as a rule, sometimes it can be a little less, sometimes you're gonna need more, but in general, I think we have 2 million in. We could make payroll, make our payments on behalf of other things.
Can you explain, the Wisconsin investment pool or WISC? The monies aren't locked in there, there's no, our ability to move them in and out is.
Yeah, we can do everything online with any of those 3. Any of those you can integrate with your local bank and move money, and it's pretty much instant. They might have a deadline of 2 o'clock to get it pulled. But generally, you know, you get it in there, you can utilize the money right away. So the availability is not an issue with everything. investment option. So aside from what we need in France and just for our daily banking needs, really we could utilize any of those other ones, any or all. And it makes sense to diversify. The rates are very similar, so they're not gonna be all that. We can add some of each. Just for our own safeguarding beyond the insurance. We can carry them.
So if we need 2 million liquid, is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
How much would be available to invest? And for how long?
Right at this moment, about 16.
16 million?
And, you know, looking right now, we've got over 10 million in LGIP right now, we've got about 4 in list. That will vary as we keep spending down the bond issue proceeds, that's not gonna be available anymore. There are times of year, like when we get settlements, we'll have a whole bunch of money we can invest for a little bit before we start sending that out. It varies month to month. It's gonna be more of a, if the committee wants to make a recommendation on where, it will be more of probably percentage of anything above the 2 million.
2 million is for enough to pay the expenses for how long? Well,
Well, it would be about between 2 and 3 weeks. But again, the other money is very liquid. It's just you don't want to get it so tight that we get on the ground in France. And the difference for me between the school and here is there are so many different people spending money, whereas I used to, you know, everything was going out. So I could really watch the bank accounts and move money that way. Now, I might not know, I mean, I know when the bills are going out. But, and most things I sign up on to get paid off, but there are regular bills that I don't even see, and I won't know what they're about, so.
well, I'd rather be safe than sorry, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure with Branson, we could set up some sort of sweep account where it's gonna drop, but it probably couldn't drop from an investment company. You can only drop from something like that.
The 2 million gives you 2 or 3 weeks, but it's not, I guess it's not overly consistent throughout the year, but you still have your revenues coming into when either stumpage or your share revenue from the state or your allocations for human services and in the summer you get your tax settlements. So there's inflows coming in as we balance that out.
And what I'll do as we move forward is really track it and see what we really need. Because right now, Branson's rate is pretty comparable. I mean, it's a point less, but it's comparable to what we were getting outside. If it goes back to where we were getting virtually nothing and we can get 2% from it, that's a bigger deal to keep the money where it is and transfer it as we need it. But we want to minimize risk, but we also want to maximize our return on what we have.
Like Mike explained, you can see like the WISC and state government pool and ADM are all pretty consistent because they're all tied to the TIGO. So they're gonna move, they might move a little bit slower than the others, but they're all gonna follow each other. Right, to me, the biggest thing is if you wanted to, a CD, if you did like a 2-year CD or 1-year CD, you're hedging on if the market turns and things go down, at least you're locked, have some money locked in at that, whatever their CD rate is.
Yes,
Mike, when you say diversify, are you talking different accounts or are you talking different length of time that we invest? Or both?
It could be both, and by accounts, I mean actually LGIP, yes.
That's what you're saying, right, Andy?
Yeah.
If you want multiple accounts.
The return is not gonna be significantly different between those, but you're balancing out your who holds our funds.
yes,
I just want to echo what Andy, I mean, what I'm hearing all this, I mean. What you're asking from us or, diversify, I think Andy sums it up well. I think the difference we should be concerned with is fixed versus float. And if you want to blend that versus. Because if you're in all this and not a CD, you're just floating the market basically, right? I for one be for a mixture of fixed versus fixed and float.
And is it common that we've been requested to do this in past? Like, I don't remember last year ever being presented with this scenario. So this is new.
Trying to broaden your horizon.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Keep
And this is
trying.
good. This is really good with my foot.
Anyway, it's awesome. I just was wondering, if this was new and
Yes, it's
Okay.
new. And
And this is
I
our investment committee, right, Chairman?
asked Mike to put some more stuff together and I think he's done a wonderful job here
Yeah.
with this. And I think that's great that we get the chance to say how we want to distribute it percentage wise. And I don't know what to answer him with.
Well, we thought to start with, it'd be good for you just to see the financial report. of
Mhm.
Here's how much, here's your money, here's where it is now. And probably a couple years ago, I mean, these conversations were pretty boring because it's like. Point.
Yeah, if you want to point out.
Yeah, exactly.
All this, you can, I mean, it's pretty remarkable, the rise just from the last 6 months.
Now you see real money.
It's real money.
Yeah.
What I could do for next month is actually track a couple years what our cash balance was at the end of each month. And then we can maybe see how much we could put in a fixed and for how long
Okay.
versus, right now,
Isn't that right here? No,
those are the rates. I'm
right, if you do a 3-year fix at 4%.
what I'm heard for next month is how much money we do.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. Versus, right now I'm pretty comfortable writing out what we're in because we're getting equal even to what a 3-year CD would be. So doing that another month isn't gonna hurt us. If I can come back with better data on how much we could maybe tie up for 2 years or 3 years versus just having a money market.
Make that make sense.
I have mixed thoughts about that. And the reason I have mixed thoughts about that is and maybe I'm missing something. But why do we have money for 3 years out there when it's the taxpayers' money? And maybe I'm not looking at the clear picture.
Earn more money.
Well, we have a fund balance.
Yeah.
as a coin, so that's
Okay,
basically, a portion of that is what you could tie up longer term because. You
we're
likely
always gonna
need
have,
that
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
You have
for
your
your
reserve
daily
and
operations.
if you were to do CDs, you probably wouldn't go buy a 3-year, you might buy a 1-year and a 2-year.
Yeah,
So
Okay,
and you wouldn't
To
want
blend
to
it.
go once either state also the maturities are stated.
okay, that makes sense to do it that way. Yeah. Yes,
Do you want direction from this committee then? What
Well, I'm putting out there, do you want more information on what we potentially could put in the CDs and then make a better decision next month?
yes,
Is it so you're talking about kind of dollar amounts or are we talking percentages? Because you mentioned percentages.
Dollar amount. Percentage I was talking more about among these.
Oh, the rates themselves. Okay. But ultimately, you come with dollar amounts. I mean, a decision may be a mixed portfolio of a third, a third, and a third.
Mhm.
Okay.
And in the end, it's not gonna vary a lot. We probably could put it at a percentage.
Makes it easier in my head. Less numbers to track.
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be interesting if you put that together for us, give us more to look at.
I like voting on something concrete versus hypothetical. But
Thank you, Mike, for putting it all together. Nice job. Make sure he was done. Move on to number 11, carbon credit update. Anything to report?
just that Greg and I had a kickoff meeting with a new, before Christmas. They wanted to have just a get together to talk about the process, so The next steps are really gonna be with Greg in the forestry office. He had submitted information to them a year or more ago when the conversation started on the county's forest land, the mix of species, the harvest levels. So that's actually going back and redoing some of that. And then a new takes that and starts to run it through their I guess their science. I mean, they have some literally some science, scientists and PhDs that go through and figure out the carbon capture, or the carbon protection. And then they also then will come in probably this summer and set up test plot or plots on the county land to measure the growth levels. It's all part of their due diligence to determine how many carbon credits will be available. So that's starting now.
So different species provide more carbon credits.
They have different levels, and then also the species play into the use. So, and I'm just gonna give you like the non-forestry like idea, like if you have timber that goes into railroad ties, those are long lasting or home like dimensional lumber, versus if you put it into paper or pellets that are consumed and the energy is released. So you get different amount of credits for even that
Okay.
end use, which ties back, certain species go to different uses. If that makes any sense.
How about the age of the species? That depends on mature forest versus a clear cut.
Yeah, we'll back into your sustainable forest. And part of what we're already doing, the reason we're eligible for the credits is because we have a continuous cycle. We're not over harvesting. Our forest continues to expand, even though we continue to harvest. So the growth always exceeds our harvest levels.
Yes,
Did purchasing that additional lot this fall, did that help us?
Yeah, I mean, anything that's gonna have timber on it's gonna help us. It's, 80 acres relative to 115,000, so it's a small piece, but yeah, it'll increase. That's still in the process too, where we've closed on the land, we've acquired it. Now there's a process to go through to add that officially to the county forest block.
Okay.
But you're still looking 18 months at the earliest, I would say, before we'll see the credits get sold. Bayfield County does not have a sale complete, and they're over 18 months now.
Okay.
So, but they keep saying it should be any time now that they'll have that project sold into the market.
but there's steps obviously that the forest department has to go through, which is nice to be kept abreast of that, so
Sure.
we know where things are.
Yep.
Okay. Number 12, financial funds updates. Start with letter A, ARPA.
No, I don't have any real update on ARPA. I think Mike's giving you the balance. We are working through a disbursement right now for Novato for the Lenwood project. And then the other, so that Mosaic and Novato were the first two projects we funded in 2021. So those are both complete. And then the other ones that were funded last year will be are either in process or starting in 2023. Just a comment, I updated the Economic Development Committee that there's another round of grant applications coming up at the state level for broadband projects. We did receive a request from BevCom. They have a project that's going to affect 110 subscribers or customers in the Coudray and Radisson area. They were looking for support for their grant application. I let them know that we don't have the ARPA funds anymore available. But we'll provide them a letter of support. And the other thing that we can do is even a nominal dollar amount to help them with their application, helps them score additional points. So I've suggested that we could do $500 for these types of applications. It gets them a greater likelihood of being funded.
Okay,
It's because it shows a letter of support is nice, but actually putting even the nominal dollar amount shows they can show us as a partner on the project.
This is the same company that backed out of the the one process now? Okay.
Bevcom is, you did a project with Bevcom last year.
Mhm.
Different warehouse.
They're from, yeah, their
Yeah.
local offices. Bevcom is in Minnesota, Wisconsin, but their local office for this territory is in Weyerhaeuser.
Okay.
And talking with Mike, we can find, the 500 won't come out tomorrow.
I like that idea though. That's a good idea.
It would be probably even maybe in next year, we would actually need to budget for it.
Do we need a motion today?
I don't think
No,
so.
I'll bring it back,
Okay.
something official next month. Opioid funds, you can see the dollar amount there. I believe I should follow up to the CJCC saw kind of the layout of the plan yesterday. Come back to CJC next month with additional work now, and then the plan is to present that to the county board at the February meeting. With some recommendations on the priorities within that plan.
That's the treatment and recovery plan they shared yesterday.
Yes. The local area and tribal consistency fund. That's that new one-time pot of money that came out of the federal legislation. We received half of that. I'm getting, I can't remember the dollar exact, 300, we received 370,000. And we should be receiving the other half middle of this year. That's just, we put that into the bank accounts and I've left it for now.
Is there certain requirements that we,
Very little.
so we could request the other half from LCO to Sawyer County to run programs?
Yeah, I think they got their own, I don't know how much money they got, but I believe they're getting some of the allocation as well.
And there's very few restrictions on spending.
Right.
Just kind of whatever government feels they need it for.
It's basically like property tax revenue.
Good. Letter D. Ambulance financial report.
All right, this update will be very similar to last month. Again, the reason they chose to begin in May, we switched billing companies, we didn't bill. January to April, so I'm trying to. When I make decisions, I want to look at the most consistent data that I can out there, so if I'm doing it that way. So, you want to go to the next slide?
Andy's running your slides.
And
That's why it's a little slow.
Two hands.
all right, so looking at this versus the report from last month, our calls are way up in November. The billings aren't up as much as the calls. There are kind of three different ways we bill, from my limited understanding of this. We have a base raise, we have mileage attached to that, and we have the transfers. So those are kind of the three ways we generate the revenue. The good news is collections were a high percentage again, 49.02, almost 63% last month. And that's after 4 months, they're in the 30% range. And Andy and I have talked about this, and a goal is typically around 50%. I don't know if we'll hit 50% for a year in Sawyer County. It's not a wealthy county. And a lot of the billings are not always going to be to insurance, or the actual people paying. But that's where we're at. So what I'm encouraged about is number of calls went up after we've really been waiting. And the percentage of collections. You want to go to the next slide?
Just a minute, please.
Yeah.
Why are we at 30% in September, August, and July? June, do we know why?
No.
Are the percentages that are paid are that primarily from insurance payment?
Yeah, that could be.
It's insurance, it's Medicaid,
Medicaid.
Medicare,
Well, we consider insurance.
but there are some private. ones.
But the ones that, so I guess what I'm getting at is, what's not, if half of it's not paid, is that from uninsured recipient? Or I would imagine insurance primarily would pay eventually, right?
I just don't know this that well. You know,
Yeah.
part of it could be the percentage, Medicare thing, that they pay a much smaller percentage than the bill. Like if you, even if you look at your own bill and see, you get a bill from the doctor, insurance, okay, the bill's 3,800. Insurance says, well, we're gonna pay 2,000, so they're negotiating it down. I don't know if that comes into play, but I know a big part is gonna be Medicare, Medicaid, not paying 100%.
But I guess we're expecting it, if we're expecting the best to be 50%, we're assuming we're gonna bill out 100,000, but only hopefully get half of it back.
Mhm.
But the ambulance company gets the 100%. Right, we are the ambulance company.
It's gonna be, it'll be write-offs for us.
Oh, okay,
We are the ambulance.
right, right.
And it is a mix of insurance has a cap, the first X amount of dollars for an incident, and that's split up between the hospital and the ambulance service. And the Medicaid has set rates for this how much they pay, and then you have some people that are uninsured, and
Mhm.
you try to collect on those, but at some point you have to.
A lot of insurance is pretty good deductible for the ambulance.
Is there any coding issues that are prompting them not to see it as an ambulance bill? Because I think in prior years, we've had coding issues, but I think that was taken care of with this new company, right?
Yeah, we haven't come across any coding
Okay.
problems that we're aware of.
Mhm.
It seems like the run sheets are we have to get the run sheets done and submit those to the billing company so they can bill out, and it seems like the turnaround of those is been decent.
Mhm.
And it will be hard to gauge how we're doing until we actually go through our full 12 months. Within the company. And they said that from the start, so we'll take at least 12 months to really compare how their range is.
We don't have much control here. We take what they give us. And that's kind of it. We don't sue anybody.
Well, we send it to collections.
Hmm.
We do that or the,
Well, the billing company
does.
takes it
That's
to
part of their
collections.
job. Yeah.
what kind of a return do we get on that?
That's part of the full 12 months, because it might not go to collections until maybe 6 months. So we're just getting to the point now where things will start going to collections.
It'll be poor.
Yeah, it will be.
But still, this is an improvement from the company that we had previously, so I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, one thing I can say for sure is that can't say for sure that they're doing a better job, but their information is much better and much more accessible than the prior companies.
So they're communicating with us.
Yeah, communicating, and they have a better.
The platform
Platform.
was really nice. We can
Yeah.
run all kinds of reports and there's aging schedules. We can see everything.
Okay.
So then next slide, I'll start with the graphs. So this shows the average calls per month, and with a strong November, that came up a little bit versus the previous 30 years and the 3-year average. Still lagging. But we're making steps to getting better. I think we've talked about this before, but we don't seem to be getting as many transfers as we have in the past, which is knocking our calls down. And also the transfers are almost guaranteed money. So if you really want.
We're not running out of vehicles as fast. are we?
Me and Chairman argue about that.
There's, you know.
You know,
catch 22
I mean,
with
this is
everything.
our hospital, and why would they use us?
Depends on the
And you-
availability.
Maybe you and Ron need to go out there and have a listen. I mean, we're the ambulance service nearby, we're right here. But I know Ron's always concerned about putting miles on our trucks. Is that a legitimate concern?
You'd have to weigh out that versus the revenue we're getting.
But the transfer you're getting paid,
Mhm.
might not get paid for a local visit.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do put more miles on, but the rate that you charge your load fee should cover the depreciation and cost. Generally, and those are guaranteed pay, and you're making money on transfers, including the depreciation and wear and tear on the vehicle. It does complicate things because you got to balance out to staffing. So if you have a transfer here and since COVID. And it's not because of COVID necessarily, but sometimes transfers can be long now too, because hospital beds.
Yeah.
I mean, they're, you know, the Eau Claire market is pretty saturated, so if they're full, then maybe it's Marshfield, and if they're full, it could be La Crosse. So you're taking a crew out of county for more than a full shift.
Then it has to stay in state.
Doesn't
No, 'cause
have
they
to, some people go to Duluth.
Duluth,
Yeah.
yes.
So who are we competing against for transfers?
Our biggest competition is Great Divide.
Out of
Cable. There's, yeah, I can't speak eloquently about it, so I'm not gonna muck it up, but there's some politics involved as well.
And the hospital grounds are tax exempt, right? They don't pay any.
Generally, yeah, I haven't looked at this one, but generally hospitals are not taxable, clinics are taxed, property tax.
So what you're saying is that the hospital decides who does the transfer, the consumer doesn't, so the patient doesn't get to decide.
The consumer can decide, but generally they don't ask you.
Yeah,
I mean, you realize you're getting transferred, you can request a service, but generally it doesn't happen.
mhm.
That's a good question. And who pays that cost?
It's attached to your
Hospital bill.
hospital bill.
Mhm.
It's generally the hospital's transferring you to another. If they can help it, they're gonna transfer it to someplace they're gonna make money off of it. They don't like to let things get out of their system. Here this is it's somewhat unique compared to the rest of the markets in the region where this hospital is more independent.
So the hospital pays the bill, so they get paid immediate,
They pay us.
not waiting or collections or anything from that.
Thank you for doing these reports so we can see what's happening.
But yeah, they're just, I don't know if Ron wants to go, but we are gonna be out to the hospital. That's on, I know John's Cromwell's list of things to get done here in the short term is have a discussion with them about getting us back to doing more transfers. As I think, I don't know the numbers, but for a time there, we were doing more transfers out of Ladysmith with the Ojibwa ambulance. Because we can provide paramedic level transfers, like Russ County is a basic service. So they can only transfer people who don't have an IV or don't need pain meds, but if they need those, then they call Sawyer County to do those. And I think even that's more competitive now because if they can help it, Ladysmith will call their own ambulance service out of Rice Lake to come do the transfer. That way they keep the money. But they're having their own staffing issues, so that's why the Ojibwa ambulance was getting called a lot to do transfers.
Most of the calls do come out of Russ County though, for the transfers.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I'm wondering if they don't use us because we're not available. Did you find that out? Andy?
yeah, we're gonna find out what the exact reason is. That's part of
We have two
the,
units that sit right here, right?
yep.
A mile and a half from them.
And Great Divide is a municipal service out of Cable. But obviously they don't have a lot of calls, so they take. I mean, Great Divide used to do 911 service for outlying areas outside of Cable up to like Barnes and they stopped doing all that. They still have to provide 911 for Cable, but part of the reason I believe they stopped doing those other 911s is they could make themselves available to do more transfers
Mhm.
for hospitals, which is more profitable, that service.
But then those people aren't getting serviced that live like in Clam Lake or Glidden or, they're,
I'm sure you've heard all about.
yes, I have, yeah.
So in some places like over to the east, Marshfield Medical out of Park Falls has contracts now, which are very expensive contracts. And some of those townships are trying to figure out how to stand up their own ambulances now.
Mhm.
And I think like in the Barnes area, we have a contract with them now as backup because they're getting volunteer services up and running, but they're not up and running that often because they're so dependent on people who have other careers.
Right, want to go to the next slide?
But
So this is an average bill per month. And, we're not that far under last year. When we know the calls really on the buildings, and part of that is because we heard just the fee structure I gave you a year ago. Next one. This is the average collected per month. I mean, you can see the gap has even shrinking a little bit, even with the other 2 prior years. And that's because our, this year now, for these 7 months, is the best of the 4 years, our collection percentage. So if you look at the next slide, I think that's what that one is. Yeah. So last month, we were just behind 2021. This year, we are just with November added in, we actually surpassed 2021 for the percentage of collections. So, I mean, this tells me, at least with the limited months we have, in these services, we need a good job collecting. And I think there's 2 more slides. This is the amount billed per call and the amount received collected per call. So those are still out of the 4 years, the number 1. So that's the good news. Calls may be down, but we're getting the most money per call out of them in the 4 years. And then the last slide is just kind of where ambulance is with the budget, because we all know they're under for billing. But the good news is the expenses are down too, so the very net at the bottom is under $10,000 less at this point. So like I said, I know there's gonna be some revenues and expenses probably coming in, but even though revenues are down, expenses are down, so kind of netting all of it.
And I might have told Mike a goal, 50% is what I'm familiar with as a goal. That's just if you're budgeting for starting ambulance service. When you put the numbers together, it costs roughly 1.5 million per ambulance. And then you just expect that you're gonna have to subsidize it 750,000. And the 1.5 is based on the ambulance, the staffing, the 24/7
The housing.
housing, yeah, all that.
Where does the $10,000 shortfall come from? General fund or the?
And every department, some are up, some are down, the network.
Okay. Questions, concerns? Thank you. Nice job putting it together. Letter E, courthouse expansion financial update. No, didn't we talk last night? How Ventures is gonna owe us money back?
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about last night and I got an updated report here just a few minutes ago. So the last time, a month ago, we reported that there was roughly $252,000 left in our contingency fund. It started at $390,000 originally. As of today, now there's $198,000 left. And a lot of, I mean, we have not, in the recent months, made really any changes that we've asked for or scope of work. The RFIs or they call it a PCI log, it's the potential changes. And they take a look at them are really the result of the construction, the contractors finding some issues, unknowns or things that when they're actually doing the construction differ from what the plans say. So there's been things like missing, it's on this list here that we just completed. There's when pavement was put down on Kansas Street in the sheriff's lot. In November, those patches, the size of the patches were more than what the estimate was. So there was a little bit of a grab out of the contingency fund for that. There were some foundation changes that were made. Some revisions to the exterior signage. Just small items that there's over 60 items in the PCI log now that have impacted the contingency fund. So the further along in the project you get, the less we should be using the contingency fund. So we're still have more than half of it available.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, definitely a good thing. We've done the best we can to protect that and not make any unnecessary changes, but make the ones that I think have some from our end at least, when we've asked for some changes, it's either been value engineering it or just looking at long-term costs, like on the east side of the building, adding in the gutters for the full length to make sure the parking lot drains and we get rid of the ice issues that we have historically on that side.
How's our timetable?
Timetable's staying the same. They're still saying that there'll be substantial completion by March 10th. And turn over the building in that week and then.
Did they mean this year or next?
This-
We should confirm that.
Oh, it's this one.
2023 or 2024? Because when you said that at the VI, I was like, do you mean this year, right?
So
Okay.
Trevor is our construction manager and I saw him Monday and 62 days.
But also remember that they gotta do the second courtroom yet,
Yeah,
so there'll be a time lapse.
Yeah.
that's when we get access to the new building.
Mm.
And so then there'll be about a 10-14 day window of turnover, like we'll get to move in, get things moved over, then they start working on the remodeling on the existing structure. Other things like IT is on time or there's no delay. We're not aware of any delays in any equipment that's ordered for that. Actually, the furniture, the chairs, desks that we've ordered, other fixtures for their tables, they were gonna deliver them this week. Because it started the construction project, the contractors told them this date so that they were here on time. So we actually had to tell them, don't bring that stuff yet because we don't have any place to put it. So actually, they're probably gonna end up delivering a semi-trailer in the next couple weeks. And rather than multiple handlings of that equipment, we're gonna park the trailer and then unload it a month from now when things are ready to start moving in. So everything's according to what we have a meeting next week, maybe we'll find out something different, but
Oh, cool.
everything's on time.
So Andy, when we started this project, we hired a construction manager at risk, meaning that they would be on time and on budget.
Yep.
True.
Yeah,
You
you're,
are looking like, yes.
yeah,
And then I asked you yesterday about the second judge in the election. That's all coming together.
Mhm.
You got applicants, candidates.
Yep.
And the election in April.
Election is in April, correct?
There's 4 people biting for the judge, so that'll be good.
Yeah.
People get a good choice.
I don't know.
I thought it was 2. Are you being
It's
facetious?
one, but
You want the English.
officially one right now.
Oh, okay.
let's go to letter F, the disaster in Sawyer County declaration.
Yeah, so just a couple things. I made a call actually after the meeting last night and talked to Randy from Wisconsin Emergency Management this morning just to clarify. So I know I heard a little bit of a rumbling that the governor had denied the disaster. That's not the case. It's just that the governor we're not gonna have enough here for a federal declaration. So you're not gonna see anything in the news about a disaster being declared. At this point, we have to get all the estimates from the townships, the villages, all the municipalities in by tomorrow. And then we submit those to the state on their behalf. And we have to clear a threshold of, I don't remember, it's $4 and some change per person in order to be eligible for reimbursement. At this point, it looks like we're gonna well exceed that. Once that's approved, then Wisconsin Emergency Management works directly with those townships to get the receipts. So we're probably gonna end up, we already filed the disaster declaration. We're going to have to file extensions to take it into the spring and summer, because that's probably when the next big round of cleanup is gonna happen. Once the snow is gone and all the debris that couldn't be accessed or are buried will be removed. What else? It's a 70% reimbursement for those costs. And then beyond, I mean, most of that is municipality on public land, so it's the road right of ways, it's debris removal, that type of thing. So we are also, but it does not cover trails. That's been a big issue locally is like the Birkemeyer Trail, the Sealy Hills and all the snowmobile ATV trails. They've spent between all those, we're aware of their costs exceeding 200,000. Those aren't covered by disaster funds generally though. So we are starting to reach out or have reached out to our legislators and just giving them updated numbers to try to get some type of push down in Madison to get those covered. There's other specific.
Good job.
Okay.
Is there a threshold we have to meet to get that?
Yeah.
Oh, we mentioned it.
$4 and some change per capita. So that's. Our total has to exceed that to be eligible.
Yeah.
And then for each township. To be eligible, they have to, they're, in their township, they have to exceed that. Total cost as well.
Do we get to combine the townships with the counties to make one?
Yep.
Push?
Yep. We make one push to get the total county included.
Yeah.
But then to actually get reimbursement, each township has to show. That they clear the threshold just for their township.
Gotcha.
So does the Snowmobile Alliance and the Berkey have to apply separately for the reimbursement because they're not funded through the county?
This is all state money.
Mhm.
So we've turned in their numbers to Wisconsin Emergency Management. And they've said that those are not covered because they don't cover trails. And so the ski and ATV or the snowmobile ATV will be able to turn in those as part of their regular trail maintenance. But we know that the amount of money they've spent is far going to exceed
Right.
what they can recover through their normal DNR contracts.
Mhm.
So that's why we're asking for other considerations. The
Mhm.
ski trail is just, right now it's a no. From emergency management, that's why we've turned to the legislators and asked them to
Mhm.
take up the battle first a little bit.
Have you gotten a response from the DNR? Or you haven't contacted them? You're hoping that the representatives do?
Great. The response from the DNR is submit for the,
Mhm.
they're saying, no, we don't fund ski trails, and they're saying for the snowmobile ATV clubs, turn those in with your
Mhm.
regular request for funding.
Mhm.
And did you contact the legislators directly, or is there some sort of body you're contacting?
I've sent them all the information, but my main contact who seems to be working with all the new ones is Tyler and Representative
Jimmy
Evans'
Glenn.
office. Yep.
He's really good.
He was in, Romaine reached out directly before he was even officially in office, but Tyler's been reaching out back during the event was,
Working with the two state senators and
yeah,
the others, okay.
he's rounded up, Corey's
Corey
office
and
and then
Chance, yeah.
Chance's. But yeah, I give Tyler a lot of credit. He gave me his cell number, gave us his cell number here because it was kind of in December when it was all going on. He said, "Here's my
Tyler did?
number." Yeah.
Tyler's gonna be doing
Yeah. So they've been really helpful.
excellent.
Good report. Future agenda items. Anybody have anything they would like to have on the agenda?
Well, just make sure we address the investments.
Yep.
Let's see.
That's you.
Michael will repeat a lot of this stuff with updates.
An action request. You know, when we have to vote, you know.
Pretty stay there.
Okay. Anybody have anything for 14 correspondence reports, conferences? One suggestion that the county board maybe have the disaster on that agenda also, the update of the whole board, so the old board knows where things are at.
Yeah, we'll be able to give you the report on how much damage that
Yeah.
claims we turned in.
That'd be a good thing to have on the full board.
So to
Thank you for your valuable time. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.